Hello, my name is Henry Rollins, and today I am hanging out with the great Kid Congo. I must tell you that I don't want to get into competition with anyone here, but I might be the biggest Kid Congo fan in the world. If you think you can beat me, well, then hang out with me for the next 45 minutes to an hour as I hang out with Kid Congo, who should be on the screen with me. I hope I'm doing everything correct. Before Kid gets a word in edgewise, Kid Congo was in a band called the Cramps. Kid Congo was in a band called the Gun Club. Kid Congo was in a band called Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Kid Congo was in an amazing band called Kid Congo and the Pink Monkey Birds, who does one fantastic album after another on the In the Red Records label. I follow his band whenever I can and see them play whenever I do. And when I do, it's always the best show I saw that year, no matter what year it was. And so Kid has made a fantastic book called Some New Kind of Kick. Kid, I have a lot of questions for you, but also we have some really good questions from our wonderful audience. And so we're going to split it about 50-50, but maybe I'll let them have about 2/3 of our time because the questions are so good. So, Kid, thank you so much for showing up. How are you, sir?
Good. And thank you, Henry, for being here and doing this with me.
No problem.
Yeah.
You know, you've been in these great bands, and I'm just speaking as nothing but a pure fan, Kid. The bands, the Cramps, and the Cramps, the Bad Seeds, and the Gun Club. Some of my favorite albums from those bands you happen to be on, and you have such a unique and fantastic story. You keep turning up on these really amazing records with these really amazing players around you. My question to you, the first question is, what made you want to do an autobiography? I think you're a perfect candidate for it, but what made you want to stop everything and get into a book?
Well, the thing that made me, I don't know. Just like everything else, as you read in the book, I don't know how anything happened. It just all happened. But with the book, what really happened was that there was a friend of mine, Jonathan Tobin, did a exhaustive interview. He was putting out a record of mine at the time when no one else would sign me, and he wanted to put a blog together. And he's like, people know you were in the Gun Club, people know you were in Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, people know you were in the Cramps, but a lot of people don't know you did all three of those things. Right. So he did this really exhaustive timeline type of interview, days and days of interviewing me. And I was like, oh, this is a timeline for a book. I'll just fill in a few blanks and we'll be done. And that was in 2006. And here we are publishing it in 2022. So it was a little longer. The reason was because I moved out of New York and I said, oh my God, I have some time to reflect. You know, I was like going the whole time, you know, as you can see in the book, and I was just going so fast, and there was looking back to reflect was just not on the cards, you know. And so I was actually physically afforded the luxury of looking back and started doing it.
So 2006 to 2022, basically, when the book is out now, that's a lot of years, which says, was there a lot of stopping and starting?
Yeah, there was a lot. You know, every time I got uncomfortable, I would leap out of my chair, you know, like, and go, I have to make a record and go on tour for a year, you know, and then it would give me some time to like not have to deal with whatever I didn't want to deal with in the book. And so that did a lot. And, you know, in the old, you know, I've talked to a lot of writers, you know, the one, you know, fetching it out of the garbage can, like, who wants to read this, you know, kind of thing in your head that you make up in your head, you know. And then also I went to a lot of writing workshops and did things like that.
Really? So yeah. You really drilled down on this.
Oh yeah. I went to the Writers Center in Bethesda. You may know it.
This kind of bespeaks of a part of the book where you thought for a moment that you might just become a music journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually took some classes on that. So the academic approach is not foreign to you.
No. Well, it's a little foreign because it was a long time.
Yeah, but just the idea of like, if you want to get good at something, actually taking a class for it.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a penchant for writing journalism and making fanzines and different
Right.
things. And obviously over the years, I've done a lot of article writing for different magazines. And I enjoy it a lot. And so yeah, so describing things is something I use in lyrics, and something it was good for writing a book, that I enjoy describing feelings and things.
The book is it's so well written, and I cannot suggest to our wonderful viewers and listeners this book enough. Again, the book is called Some New Kind of Kick. You see it with Kid, and so here's my copy.
Mhm.
Um, was there any point in the book you speak of discomfort when you really had to sit down and look at your life from start to finish? There must have been some moments that were not exactly comfortable. But it seems to me that you very bravely went through the book, went through your life and looked at. There's some really rough patches. You talk about using drugs,
Mhm.
and no question I'm going to ask you. Kid is talking out of class. I wouldn't dare. I'm going exactly from the book. Um, one of the questions I have, and I'm not trying to get too deep, but it's such a theme. A lot of people leave home and go to like a tough part of town, or they try to get really intense experiences because they are somehow rejecting their home life. There's an abusive parent. There's alcoholism in the family. There's something horrible happening. So the young person gets out. You went to like downtown Los Angeles. You're seeing some really rough parts of a really rough city. But what struck me from the book is it doesn't reflect any bad home life. The parents seemed really, really cool. You have great relatives. There was music, there was food, there was fun. You came out to your mother, and she sounds like from the book, it was like completely okay that you were gay. She didn't even give it a second thought. Maybe she knew before you did. My question is, what was it that made you want to go out into this world that was so different than how you grew up? Because it wasn't like I'm leaving home because I hate it. There was something. It looked like you wanted to identify, you wanted to find yourself, and you weren't finding those questions getting answered from home, from
Mhm.
school, from people around you. You're going to find it, by finding some really crazy, wild people to hang out with. Is that at all? Uh, is there any traction to what I'm trying to get at?
No, that's very much traction. I mean, I was, brought up, growing up. I knew there was a bigger world out there, and magazine. I was so informed by magazines, by mostly music magazines, mostly very specific music magazines like Cream and Circus and Rock Scene magazine. These made the rest of the world a really exciting place, and rock life, an exciting thing. And when I and I had and the other thing was that I had neighbors. I had slightly older neighbors who like turned me on to, like, at my early 12 or 13, they said, listen to the Mothers of Invention, listen to the Dr. Demento show, hey, read this R. Crumb comic. So I had mentors, and I had older sisters into music. So music magazines and Mad Magazine were the that showed me there was a whole world out there. And I thought, well, wow, you can go to that world. I don't know what made me think I could go, but I just went. And I just, I don't know, I thought it was kind of normal to just put yourself there. And I'm an Aries, so I'm the ram. And if I'm gonna, no matter how long it takes, I'm gonna ram through and get to what I want. And I could see that after I wrote the book. I saw, like, wow, very single-minded, very single-minded. What
When you got
the escape was a smaller world for a bigger world. You know.
when you got through the book, when you finally came to the end, did you make discoveries about yourself that you perhaps might not have made had you not sat down and gone through your life so methodically?
Oh yeah, definitely. That some things I thought were great were not so great, and but mostly that I did whatever the heck I wanted, the whole time, and I was like, wow, that's pretty good accomplishment, that I, just followed my nose and did what I wanted to do. Some of it dangerous, most of it fun and ridiculous, and that's the thing is I always had a sense of humor about what was going on, and I could see it, and I could see the absurdity. So it was kind of like the ridiculous with the sublime sort of situation, and so I feel like I even saw that when I was really young, and I was just after excitement, some new kind of kick maybe, yeah. And
'Cause, there's no part of the book. I mean, later in the book, you and I'm not trying to be morose or anything. There's drug abuse in this book. I mean, like I'm not talking out of class. You
yeah.
talk about it in the book, a long relationship with heroin, and at some point you talk about maybe what inspired some less than healthy pursuits. But
Mhm.
your initial time, like going out into the world, it seems like it was without any kind of malice or any kind of self-destructive idea. It is just incredible curiosity and wanting to find your people, your set, find your own personal gravity. Here's a question, and I made this discovery by reading your really excellent book, Kid. Let's talk about you going from a fan of music, as you just described, going from magazines, going to some ridiculously ground floor punk rock shows in Los Angeles that many of us are fans are green with envy of the bands and gigs that you saw. Bands like the Screamers and the Germs and the Weirdos and you went from fan to being in a band. And I always thought you were someone who had a guitar from an extremely young age. And from what it says in the book, you just kind of picked one up at the urging of a very charismatic friend that we both know. And would you just expand on that point just a little bit? Because for someone who has such an amazing catalog of music, you didn't haphazardly run into a guitar, but you kind of almost did. So can you talk about like suddenly you're holding a guitar?
Yes. So what happened was that I was a fan and writing fanzines and making Ramones fan club and fanning. I was fan. But I was identified myself as a fan, and not a musician.
Right.
Not it was that was a whole different thing. But the punk rock explosion happened, and I met Jeffrey Lee Pearson standing in line at a concert. I'd seen him at many concerts, and he was an unusual character. We started talking, and after our small conversation, he said, "You should be in a band with me." And I was like, "I don't want to be in a band." And he was like, "Well, you can be this." I said, "I don't play anything. I'm not a musician." And he said, "Well, you can be the singer." And I said, "No way, no way am I going to be a singer." And then he said, "Okay, you'll be the guitar player, and I can teach you how to play guitar. I have one sitting around the house you can borrow, and you can tune your guitar to open E and play with the slide, and just play with one finger and make chords, and it'll be easy." And I was like, and then he said, "Plus, we will get into shows for free and get free drinks." And I was like, "Sold." And 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 but really it was kind of I was like, "Wow, this guy believes I can do this. Like I don't believe I can do it, but he believes I can do it. So maybe I should try to do it." And yeah, he was quite a charismatic carny type of guy. So when he was recruiting, and he had songs, then we started playing, and he already had songs that were great, and you know he was patient enough to and realized, we're going to mix up this, you know crazy thing, and mix up these different, you know, we bonded a lot on record collecting and different musics. We both traveled to see music. He was a writer for Slash magazine, doing the reggae reviews, and I traveled to Jamaica to see music there. And I traveled to New York and London myself at that point, and you know, just all of us on a dime, and just because we had to be there, you know, we had to be near the music and check it out at its source rather than through magazines anymore. And so yeah, so then you know, then I was a guitar player. One
So
day I wasn't, one day I was.
when you picked up the guitar, did you feel that you took to it rather easily?
Yeah, I wasn't afraid of it because, you know, I was very influenced by, like, really, like Brian Gregory of the Cramps, you know, who had a very expressionistic sort of approach to guitar.
Yeah.
Um, you know, he would express himself, you know, through sound, and you know, I understood that. And people like Pat Place from the James Chance and the Contortions, or Lydia Lunch, or you know, these people were, and the New York No Wave, you know, people were skronking and and just having a voice that spoke to me that was not conventional guitar playing. So, you know, so that was kind of my first approach to it. I said, if I am not learning, you know, if I'm learning this fast way, I got to just make sound that means something and feels like something, and that's what we started with.
And you were able to find yourself with this instrument in that
Mm.
you were able to express emotion. So you left technique behind and you were able just to make you come out of a guitar, because your guitar playing is really expressive, and not
Mm.
anyone who picks up an instrument can necessarily put themselves through it. But it seems that you were able to almost naturally, and maybe that because you did get your chops rather quickly, but you're a very distinctive player.
Yeah, well, I guess because I play by instinct more than I do by any kind of learned thing. And, you know, and the more I learned, like when I was in the Cramps, you know, Poison Ivy, you know, told me, you know, think of it like a horn, you know, you're punctuating, you're squawking, you know, you let loose with a wail sometimes, you know, that's the way, you know, that was explained to me. And I was like, oh, it makes perfect sense, you know, and that's, you know, what I did in that band, and I do now. And you know, and yeah, it was just like learning on the job sort of things, you
Right.
know, feeling my way, you know, following your nose into what. And I always thought of music as like painting a picture too, that, you know, these expressions and feelings are also visual, you know. So, you know, like a song like Caveman by the Cramps, you know, I was like, oh, okay, I'll make this sound like a caveman. You know, and you know, make this sound like it's going really slow and backwards, you know, just like thoughts like that, you know, were the way to go. So I guess it's a bit experimental and a bit,
Right.
but also in the realm of rock and roll, you know, we were rock and roll people.
You know, I think maybe since you had such an eclectic musical upbringing, because you're digging the music that you're finding, but you're also listening to music from like older siblings, older relatives. So you're
Mhm.
getting glam, you're getting this, you're getting that, and then there's the Jeffrey Lee Pierce element where he's coming from a whole other brand of music and just bringing so much to you. Um, this interview is not about me, but I have to dip into my own bag for just a minute. I come from Washington, D.C., kid. I know you know that. Washington, D.C., as I've told your old bandmate, Bava, otherwise known as Poison Ivy, I once said to her, as I was standing in disbelief in my living room when she was standing there with me, I was pinching myself because she was actually standing next to me at my house. I could not believe it. I said, just so you know, I need to say this to you, Bava. Washington, D.C. is Cramps country. We love the Cramps because you guys were a New York band. We were in DC. The Cramps came to Washington all the time. And people like me and Ian Mackay, we saw the Cramps Are you kidding? If you guys came to town 3 times a year, we were at all 3 shows right up front. So my indoctrination into seeing the Cramps, still the band, one of the bands that have like, I lost my mind seeing the Cramps, was the Brian Gregory lineup, which is like these 4 amazingly talented, charismatic people, a one band monster movie happening live in front of you. And then we saw the Julian H lineup, which was really, really temporary. And we were just lucky to be able to see Julian play. And then we all jump to the 930 Club in Washington, D.C., the old one, not the new one. And we see the new lineup from my new favorite record around that time, which was Psychedelic Jungle by the Cramps. And then we finally see you play live. And that was such a different sounding Cramps show and such a different sounding Cramps record. And the impact I think you had on that band was monumental. Can you talk about a little bit about joining the freaking Cramps, which I still can't believe you were able to stand up straight when you got that offer. And what was it like being so young and so relatively untried and going into the studio with the Cramps to make Psychedelic Jungle? One of my favorite go-to My Happy Place records of all time.
Well, it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I was as the fandom you're talking about right now for the Cramps, I had the same fandom. And I traveled to New York and discovered them, before any record. And it was, converted on the spot, and rabid. And I had become somewhat friendly with them, all of them, in different ways. And you can read about that. Yeah. And so when I've been playing guitar in the Gun Club for 1 year, and some friends, mutual friends, unbeknownst to me, Lux and Ivy, and were moving to Los Angeles, and they were looking for a replacement. Brian had left, and Brian and Julian, and so they came to a Gun Club concert. Lux came with a cassette recorder with a microphone, and I guess that was my audition. Because the next thing, like a week later, they called me and said, "We're coming over." And I said, "Okay, come over. Here's some tea." And they said, "Oh, how very nice." And then they said, "Well, we want you to be in the Cramps with us." And I said, "Wow," and they said, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Well, I think it's great." And they said, "Do you have any questions for us?" And I said, "Well, what should we do?" And she's like, I was like, "Well, more, what do you want from me to do?" And they said, "Well, would you cut off a finger?" And I said, "I think I would." And they said, "Okay, then you're in our band." And that was my audition. So I ended up going into rehearsals and playing out pretty quick, which was a real different thing, because the Gun Club at the time were playing to 3 girlfriends and 4 other older band people who thought we were cute, and so I went from that to playing at the Lyceum in London for my first show. So it was a really so it was like a crash course, trial by fire. And, they believed in me. And this was the other weird thing. Like, there was no audition. There was no, you have to do something besides cut off your finger. It was like they just said, come to us. And, I have my theories about why. But, really it was because they wanted me to be there. And they saw something in me that I definitely didn't see it myself. But I was up for the occasion. I was the perfect person.
What our wonderful listeners and viewers should understand is you had the same reaction I did when I saw the Cramps. Fans for life at the first show. I bought my first Cramps 7-inch from a road crew guy from a club the size of your living room, where and Lux would always land on me. I always had a man down to his underwear had landed on my head, and I would have to pass his amazing length onto someone else because he would just roll over all of us. And just I became obsessed with this band. And so you joined a band that already has this 100-mile-an-hour, like rabid fan base. That first show, like, do you remember any of the pressure? Were you terrified, or did you think you could handle it? Like, do you have any memories of that night?
I was terrified. I'm thinking about this at the Lyceum in London. We might have done one warm-up show, but I can't remember. But that was the one that sticks out. And then also to add more terrifying pressure, in the audience was the Dam, Susie and the Bench. Every London band that I was crazy about, were there in the audience, and I was really, really scared. I can't even remember it, really. It's kind of a blur. But I do know that Steve Severin from the band, she said, I could see her hands shaking. I was like, I believe it. I believe it was visible. But after that, the game was on.
Yeah.
I was determined to do the best I could do, with the Cramps, and make the Cramps and bring whatever the most I could bring to it. And so, I became a dedicated legion of the Cramps, if not a Cramp.
It always seemed to me that Lux and Ivy were real taskmasters. They knew exactly what they wanted. And you and Nick Knox, the Cramps' amazing drummer, you were in maybe a perpetual state of not fear, but definitely being very aware of the environment that you were in that you were with these two music titans, and you really had to just keep your wits about you. Sorry for my phone.
That's okay.
So can you talk a little bit about the pressure of being a Cramp, if there was any pressure? I mean, they just commanded so much awe on stage from an audience.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen them all over the place over different iterations of the Cramps, and Lux and Ivy are just so, you're almost daunted by being even an audience member.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like being in the damn band?
They were such nice people. They were really cool and really nice. Their vision was, they had their vision for sure.
Right.
And that was unwavering and non-negotiable, and their set of rules, where like, you don't play with anyone else, don't,
right.
You're, and remain, keep your air of magic and mystery, just do that. It's not actually a lot to ask. And for a while. And then but it was, they were so patient, and so they were so free with what they gave, and I was super young. I remember Ivy said, "Oh yeah, we always said, get them young, treat them rough," but they were actually not so rough, But the rules were strict, about how to be a Cramp, but I was all up for it, I was off in a dream adventure, and the magic that was being wielded was incredible to be on stage with, and I was like, oh, I'm a part of this, and I didn't want to set a wrong foot forward, and it was an amazing college. Like, I didn't go to college, but I was in the Cramps, and it was an amazing education. Then that's what it was. It was education in magic and making magic on stage, and alchemy, and then how they ran the Cramps. It was there wasn't going to be no pandering to anyone or anything. And that was to defend the vision as a strict,
right.
The very strict vision, defended at all costs,
Because I would read Cramps interviews. I would read anything I could on the band, buy the bootlegs, and the Cramps, Lux and Ivy, were very guarded like if any interviewer would get too close in, like, well, how did you mic this drum? Or how did you do this? They would deviate and talk about their record collection or talk about a movie. It's like they just weren't going to let you in on, they're protective of the magic. Like, like you're not going to get to know how the sausage is made. And I could tell they're like pointedly protective on kind of their own legend.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very was very right for them to do that, because it was magic, and people will want to take that from you, and people want to figure it out.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
there was one thing that the Cramps didn't want, it was for people to figure them out,
Right.
and there was no reason to figure them out, they just are, and they're giving you so much, why bother finding out these boring details? They didn't want to be boring. They didn't want anything boring to happen, and they were boiling the hell out of life and bringing it to people, I mean, this went on and on because I didn't see them for like 12 years. Then I saw them one of the last tours they did, and I was just like, what the hell is this? Like when I saw them on stage, my jaw dropped to the floor, and I was like, I have seen the Cramps a lot of times, and it's the same three chords, and it's a lot of the song, they're playing the hits, and I'm like, I was like, this is just like from Mars and heaven and Venus and whatever, somewhere way beyond. And I'm like, what is it? And then it just like went boom, dawned on me. I'm like, it's them, It's just them. It's them. They're so free. They're giving so freely everything, and what's coming through this guitar and the drums and the singing and everything is just them. It's just them. It's coming through their fingers and their voices. And then that's when I started the Pink Monkey Birds. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I was a part of this, and I know how to tap into that. And it was a huge inspiration to my solo stuff, which was going in a kind of different direction. I was trying to go away from my past.
Right.
And they made me oh no, go into your past. And
well, I want to talk about Kid Congo and the Pink Monkey Birds in a second, because it really is such a great band. Not only is the music great, but the players in your band are just such monumental musicians. I mean, you really, your talent is met by everyone else in that band. I mean, you are surrounded by some seriously talented people. I need to do a little bit of housekeeping here, Kid.
Yes.
Please, viewers, look at the bottom of your screen and see premiercollectibles.com/Kid Congo Powers. That site allows you to go get signed copies of this book that you see in Kid's screen, but also see in it on my screen. And it is a great read from start to finish. I am begging you, wonderful fans of Kid Congo. See, look, he can even write his own name. Kid, I read the book twice just because I kind of started to miss the book when it was over, and I wanted to get back into your life one more time.
Yes.
And I don't want to. I swear, in a minute we're going to turn over the questions to the audience because there's some really great ones. There's a person who runs all through this book, besides yourself, of course, and we mentioned him a moment ago. His name is Jeffrey Lee Pierce. I am begging every single person watching and listening to us right now to find every single record Jeffrey was ever on and listen to it. And if you can go on YouTube and find some live footage, check it out, because they broke the mold on Jeffrey Lee Pierce. There's no one like that guy. And Kid, you had an amazing life in music that still continues to this day. Just my opinion as a fan, the Kid Congo and the Pink Monkey Birds music is as good as any record you've ever done. Those are fantastic. Take Me to My Happy Place records. But you had a long life with the great Jeffrey Lee Pierce, he of his solo music and the Gun Club. And some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard are Gun Club records, Mother Juno, Pastoral Hide and Seek records that you are on. Let's talk about our very amazing and one-of-a-kind friend Jeffrey Lee Pierce and his impact on your life, because he is all through your book, all the way into the end. And so we know how you met him, but let's talk for a moment just about his presence in your life.
Well, he was a constant presence in my life, even when we were apart. And yeah, one of the hundreds of times I quit the gun club and and went back.
Because he was not an easy band to be in, and Jeffrey was not always an easy person to work with, right?
No, he wasn't. But the thing with Jeffrey is that because of the way we met and that we started the band together, and we always had this kind of bond, and also that we had both grown up with sisters. Neither of us had a brother ever, you know, and so we kind of took on these roles of a brotherly sort of role. But also, he was my mentor and my teacher, and you know, and the thorn in my side. But he was also
he was a maniac.
yes,
I mean, he was a damn maniac. And as your mentor, he might have taken you to some pretty dangerous places.
I took myself to these dangerous places.
Yeah.
But he but we were in it together. You know, this was the brother thing comes in. And but musically a constant presence, my biggest teacher, really, and cohort, and you know, and really the gun club was our life's work, really. You know, it was a long period of time, and a lot of records, and a lot of touring, a lot of you know, ups and downs, and famous and not famous, and you know, whatever, you know. But he was the one presence that I always counted on, you know, and I always you know, could bounce ideas off of, or you know, a lot of the time it was like, well, what would Jeffrey do in this situation? You know, musically, not about life, but he was, yeah, he was a great friend to me. You know, also someone strong, visionary. You know,
yeah, another visionary.
And it went from place to place too. We didn't stay in one place. You know, as a matter of fact, the whole thing that we a lot of the time agreed on was that once people started to really try to pinpoint what we were doing, let's do something else, you know, and that was just artistic survival, really, and you know, for ourselves personally, you know, and so we were often in agreement of that, you know, and yeah, so yeah, when he left this world, you know, it was an amazing ride. You know, we had a lot of went through a lot of stuff and a lot of people and a lot of you know, and he introduced me to some of my greatest friends, you know, now, and people, probably you. And
yeah, well, that's the crazy thing about reading your book, Kid. It's not, and again, this interview is not about me at all, but I know so many people in that book. And it was such a, you know, to see the name Marcy Blaustein come up, just one of the most amazing people I've ever met.
Marcy Blaustein, great cover shot of me, like probably days after I joined the Cramps, you know, and she was not she was a photographer. She is a photographer. Obviously, it's an amazing photo.
Yeah,
she didn't like pursue it in the end, but yeah. So yeah, all the same friends, same people.
No, Kid, there's a show. I'm hoping you remember this. The Gun Club played the Lingerie, great venue in Hollywood. And I think you all played the Pastoral Hide and Seek album in its entirety. Mm-hmm. And I was literally at the front, elbows on the stage, looking up. And it's one astonishingly beautiful song after another. That record is just, I don't know what planet it's from. It's just incredible. And you all went into the song Flowing. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of the most beautiful musical experiences that you'll ever hear in your life. Do you have any memory of the creation of that song, like, and your part in it?
Yeah, Pastoral. It's funny that is such a beautiful record. I have a really
it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, we recorded that in Brussels, and it was a attempt as one of our first attempts at self-production, and it turned out quite all right, quite good.
Really well. Yeah.
Yeah, and working with, you know, Rami Mori, a bassist and guitarist, and also Nick Sanderson, the drummer. What amazing band! And we, to me, that was an amazing gun club. That was the most like cohesive, personally and professionally version. And to me, one of the strongest. But that's in my tenure, and. But the making of that record was a bit fraught with drug abuse, a malaise of sorts. It wasn't actually a really super happy time in our lives, and but we did the job. But that's the thing; that kind of feeling doesn't come through the record. We were always so the record was always number one. The recording, the performance was like, we would stop taking drugs, we would stop everything, and we were able, no matter how out of control the life was going, we were always able to focus on the record. And that was the one place we could find sanity and probably peace, because we were looking for peace, really, but creating chaos is not peace. So, but also, we had gone so long thinking that chaos was feeding our creative world, and it did for quite a while. Right. But that starts to not happen anymore, and you have to change tack, so yeah, so that is. I love that record.
No, it's perfect from start to finish. There's a great B-side, Nobody's City, which is just one of my favorite gun club songs of all time. There's lots of live tapes from around that time, and Jeffrey's singing is so clear. The band sounds great. Everyone's playing well. It was such a powerful band. So let's we don't have enough time, Kid. You've had so many lives. This could go all day, and I'm not going to try and keep you. We do want to get to these amazing questions from the fans. I'm a huge Nick Cave fan, because those are just some of the better records you're going to have in your collection. And Tender Prey, a record that you talk about in the book that you're on, as another fraught experience around that time. Not everyone in the band is necessarily on a health kick, and you describe as being a tough band to be in at that time. I was on tour when that record came out, and I would play that record at least once a day. And to this day, Nick is super prolific like you are. This is a standout Nick Cave record. And you're on it. I had no idea it was at such a heavy time. But I learned that from reading your book. So thank you for being brave enough, to talk about being in that band. And so you were in one band after another with these incredibly potent, charismatic members: Nick Cave, Jeffrey Lee Pierce, Lux Interior, Poison Ivy, etc. And then you go into this amazing solo career as a Kid Congo and the Pink Monkey Birds. There's some other solo endeavors that are detailed in the book, and you don't give yourself the best review as a singer. I'm just, as a fan, I'm going to disagree with you, and we can just agree to disagree. But with you and the Pink Monkey Birds, and those records coming out on the great In the Red Records label, helmed by the great Larry Hardy, our good friend, a guy with no enemies in the music business. He's such a sweetheart. You are very prolific, Kid. Like, those records keep coming out, and they're really, really good too. Can you talk about, like, right now, modern day Kid Congo as a songwriter? How are you pulling off, like, I'm not trying to blow the proverbial smoke, how are you making like one really great record after another, and at a very quick rate? Had you been saving up material, or did you just find that you had this torrent of riffs and ideas just like on tap the whole time?
I think it's because it's the band, really. I think that this is a band that does not discuss what we're doing. We don't know what our next move is. We just get together. Everyone comes to the table with stuff, even sometimes, the drummer, Ron, is writing lyrics. It's all different. It's it's a collaboration. It's a long-term collaboration at this point, and we have found, again, we are looking for alchemy. I picked the people to be in the band, and sometimes they picked us to be in, but it was all I don't like using the word organic, but I can't think of the other word right now. A natural occurrence that we all found each other, and it was just like, when Ron, the drummer, first played with us, we were like going on a tour. Our drummer couldn't do it. Someone said, "Call this guy from Kansas. He'll come and do it." And we're like, "Oh, I have no other better idea." Okay. And he showed up, and we were like, "What the hell?" Like, this is amazing. You're amazing. You played one song and you're amazing. And so he's been with us ever since. And the same with Quirky, who was recently left, then we were looking for a guitar player, and I was living in Washington, D.C., your old alma mater, and I saw Mark Cisneros play, and I just, like, in 1 second was like, oh, that guy has to be in the band, and luckily he was up for it, and so it's the alchemy of people, and it is the also instinctual thing. There are no auditions, there are no things. It's just like, come fly with me, and they're flying. They're monkey birds.
Kid, one of the, not only is the band like Mark Cisneros is an incredible musician, and just I don't know if you've heard his band Hammered Hulls and their album Careening. That's just one of my favorite records of this year, maybe my favorite record of this year so far.
So I'm going to give it a listen. Yeah,
incredible. Whenever I see you all play, there's so much humor in your presentation. Like you are a funny and very charismatic front person, and you're not even trying. It's just you, and you dance to the music, but you also laugh. I mean, I'm saying me as an audience member, it's such a great thing that you all put across on stage. And you say repeatedly in the book, you did not want to be in front of a band, but yet there you are, Kid, really fronting a band really well. Was there some kind of change in your life that made you see that you can really do this, not as just a player, but as a player in front of a band?
Again, I was just really inspired by the Cramps once again. I mean, and I also gave myself the time to learn what to do with my voice and feel comfortable with that. Because at first I was trying something different, and a persona came out of that.
Right.
I was trying to be Brian Ferry or whatever, and then after I saw that last Cramp show, I was like, oh, I just have to be myself. And that's all you have to be, And so I said, no matter how cornball it is, I'm going to be myself, and it luckily worked to my advantage. And I think and I just never had the self-worth, the self-confidence to do such a thing. It was a big leap for me, to do that and to put myself out there like that, and to decide to not listen to criticisms, constructive criticism. Okay. But, when I put out my first solo stuff, people were like, well, he doesn't sing like Lux Interior, or he doesn't sing like Nick Cave, he doesn't sing like Jeffrey Lee Pierce. And then I kind of had to go find my voice, really, like writing. You have to find your voice, singing, and I know there was a voice there, but I just had to find what it was, and I had to do it in public, and I found it. So
it's almost as if being a Cramp, a gun club, and a bad seed was almost the warm up to this really prolific, not one bad record in the Batch solo career. Like it was like this long multi-decade warm up, like the bowstring coming back and then the actual shot. are these fantastic solo records. Well, it's a band. It's not a solo thing. I mean, it's definitely, people together.
Yes.
It's been such an amazing journey you've had. Of all the musician types I've known in my life, you are such the candidate for an autobiography, because you really do have the story, the back catalog to prove it. And Kid, the book is such a great read. It's you. It really is you, because you're such a good guy, and it just comes through in the book. And you're so brave. And so I got questions from the audience. I really want to get these in, and I'm hoping. Okay, I hope I don't run out of batteries. And pardon my 40-cent glasses. I can't see without them. This because I've turned 28 this year. Okay, so I have some questions from the audience, and they're really, really good too. So I want to definitely give all these wonderful people their time. Sean and Melissa from Colorado ask, what is your most memorable gig, both performed and attended? So as a punter at the show and as someone on stage.
Okay, as a punter in the show, it's between two. One is the Ramones' first show at the Roxy in probably 1976.
Wow.
Where that was just, we were all salivating and ready for it. Me, Marcy Blaustein, Pleasant Game, we were all there, and everyone you ever knew was packed into that little Roxy and ready for it. And they did not disappoint. They were amazing band that, like, they would start songs and mess it up and start screaming at each other. At one point, Joey Ramone was teetering on his giant spindly legs and fell back into the drum kit and smashed, and everyone started yelling at him, the rest of the band. And it was just an incredible, wow, they didn't have to do anything, they didn't have to do anything to be themselves. They were themselves, and putting themselves out there. So that was really incredible. And that concert, will go down in my annals of history of amazing shows that thrilled me to no end. And also, I think Patti Smith's, for one of her first concerts, also at the Roxy Theater in West Hollywood, mind-blowing. She's mind-blowing today, and it was the same when she was a youngster then, so those are two of my favorite all-time life-changing concerts. But also those concerts created a community that I still belong to, of people, so they had
in that LA scene, all those really seminal people must have been in all those shows. People like Pleasant Gaiman, your friend, Marcy Blaustein, and the Weirdos and the Screamers and all these people. They were probably all at those gigs too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone was there. Yeah, right. It wasn't that big of a scene.
Right. Here's another question from Jessica in Florida. Is there anything in your book that you were nervous to put out there for the first time?
There was a lot of things. I was nervous the whole thing.
Well, can you detail any of it? And
stuff about my family, that's what I was really worried about, and I don't know why, but I was, and because some of the realist stuff, and also some of the stuff about a cousin who was murdered, and talking about that, and how about my family didn't speak about it. That was something that got a bit swept under the rug, at least to me, and so that kind of stuff, super emotional, super scary, super crazy. Some of the sexual stuff, I thought, oh my God, my mother-in-law is going to read this, and and so that, and actually talking about the bad seeds, I was like, oh my God, what's Mick Harvey going to say? But I said, I'm going to put it out there. And that's the thing, is that, especially with Nick these days, he's an open book, and he's asked me actually in the last years to re-up some interviews that we did for a thing, for one of his, he had an exhibition of sorts, a museum exhibition, and they were talking to old, old seeds. And he said, like, nothing is off the table. And I was like, thank you, Nick. I'm going to start writing now. Yeah. And so, yeah. So that kind of stuff, those were the few things. Yeah. But mostly I was ready to do it. I had resolved a lot of my, this was ends 25 years from today, So I had resolved a lot of these fears I had. And these were the main points in my life, and I was going to tell a real story.
Right, right. No, I think there's bravery all throughout the book, Kid, and that one of my favorite qualities of you is this kind of this unending humility, and that also really comes through in the book, and it makes it such an enjoyable read because you never think you're the smartest guy in the room. You really would go into experiences without your guard up, it seems to me, and you really let the world happen to you. And there's a lot to be said for that kind of bravery. Jane in Arizona asks, what's been a highlight, like a really cool moment in your career?
Okay. There's many, many, many.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I will say a big highlight was being actually in the Wim Wenders film Wings of Desire. That's a amazing, beautiful, gorgeous, now classic film, and to be even the part I'm in, it's amazing that I am in that, and that Wim Wenders is, a great music fan, a big fan of the Gun Club as well, and that film was shot by forgive my pronunciation, Henri Alacan, who was a cinematographer, on the Cocteau movies, and just many amazing great French and other films. Just one of the best, most incredible cinematographers. So being shot by him, actually, Wim Wenders, at the shooting said, like, know that you're being shot by this historic person, and know that you're going to look better than you've ever looked before, and please pay respect, and that was amazing moment when he said that and did that, and just being a part of that is pretty much a highlight. Yeah.
And some of our younger viewers, if they've not seen this film, we can't tell you what to do, but we can make some suggestions. You should really go see that film. I remember the first time I saw it, I realized I was going to be back to see it again very, very soon. And I thought to myself, I never want to sleep again. I just want to sit up and write and make music and tell stories. I mean, that film really, it was like just such a shot of something.
Yeah.
It really moved me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me a lifelong Wim Wenders fan as well. So here's a question. We kind of covered it, but where did you get your inspiration from for your music? And as you said, it's kind of an organic experience of writing together. But maybe we can get at that talking about as a guitar player in in the Pink Monkey Birds. Is there any influences or inspirations from that era of you?
Well, I say that, biggest influences are John Lee Hooker, Bo Diddley, definitely Bo Diddley. I mind that Bo Diddley beat a lot,
Yep.
And Pat Place from the Contortions and Bush Tetras. I think she's just amazing, original guitar player, and the style with which she plays is totally inspirational to me. And then, like I said, Bo Diddley, 100%.
Again, with the suggestions, I don't think enough is said about Pat Place and her amazing talent. I would beg anyone listening to us and watching us to check out any record that Pat Place is on, from the Bush Tetras to all the stuff she did with the Contortions.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, there's nothing like her.
Yeah, Lewis too.
Yeah, and I would when I was living in the Lower East Side, I'd run into her every now and then, and I kind of knew her. I said, "Do you mind? Where are you walking? Can I just walk with you?" And then she would just let me walk with her, as I would just badger her with questions, being such a fan. she, has that kind of icy patience. She kind of tolerated me. Um, we're kind of running out of time of our hour, and I don't want to keep people too long. Just a few more questions, and this might be hard to answer, but uh, Chris from California asked, is there any life advice that you would hand out to a younger version of yourself?
Mm, yes. Well, there is the old chestnut of follow your dreams, and that is like yeah, and live, baby, live. And well, the advice would be stay off the hard stuff. Yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice I can give. But if and that just that I am a self-taught, self-educated, self-started person. When I was a teenager, I made my own clothes. When I wanted glam rock clothes. So I think do it yourself. And also for perhaps queer kids, Chicano kids, or any minority who might feel disenfranchised. Hang on, there's a world out there for you. There are places for you, there are people for you, and and you just have to believe that, and try to find your tribe and go to them. And that's kind of exactly what I did.
What and I swear I'm almost done with you, kid. Someone, Ashley from New York, actually asked about your style of clothing. And so you're a self-made guitar player, and you said you made your own clothes, and that you're just getting your inspiration from, again, Cream magazine,
Yeah.
record covers, to be so your early influences were these kind of amazing, larger than life people, David Bowie, glam music. And then you have this amazing life of being in bands with larger than life people, Jeffrey Lee Pierce, Nick Cave, Lux and Ivy, etc. And then here you are with this amazing recorded catalog. Just last question: do you have any favorite records that you are on?
That's a Sophie's choice.
Yeah, with someone like your back catalog, that's a hell of a question.
Yeah. I mean, they all are my favorite. But if I'm picking out things, Mother Juno by the Gun Club, I think might be the one. It had the best. It was an amazing time, amazing work. It felt like we really stepped out into another. We recorded it in Berlin, and we recorded with Robin Guthrie from Cocteau Twins,
right.
And so we took a lot of chances. It was a kind of come back after we split up the Gun Club and went solo for a while, and it was a new band and just on fire. And I think Jeffrey's songwriting on that is amazing.
Amazing.
Just everything about it, the way I knew when we were making it that people would get how it felt, because I always think that people can feel what goes into making a record, and that felt amazing, and so I think that might be my favorite. Las Vegas Story, a close second, also a different kind of feeling altogether, different band,
very different kind of Gun Club record, beautiful nonetheless.
But it was a great, kind of darkish record, but also celebratory in one way. It was a good look at America at the time.
Yeah.
In decline, religious rights coming into power right there and sitting down and taking over. And, it was Jeffrey had a great way of seeing what was going on more of a global, bigger picture kind of way,
So, Kid, I want to thank you so much for taking all of our questions, and thank you for making so many fantastic records.
Thank you.
And thank you for the new book, Kid. Some new kind of kick. Please, folks, look at the bottom of your screen. premiercollectibles.com/Kid Congo Powers. The man is sitting there in front of you with a pen at the ready to sign your copy. This is a really beautiful book, folks. I really want you to check it out. So please get a copy. I don't want Kid to say that. I'll say it for him. Great work, Kid. Good to see you. I hope
Great
the questions.
Henry. Thank you so much, Henry, for being such a great conversationalist.
Oh, thanks. You're fun to talk to, Kid. I'm such a fan. And I'm so glad you did this book. And I'm so glad that it turned out so well. Often people with a great story don't necessarily have the chops to put it across, but you do so. Chris Campion is the person who helped you with this book,
Yes.
a great collaborator, and helped to squeeze the juice out of you and get it onto
the did. A lot of squeezing going on there.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, invaluable help. Yes, with this.
Okay, Kid, I guess our time is, I'm not exactly sure how this ends, but
we sign off, I think.
Okay. Well then, okay. Well then, please, folks, get this book. Kid is standing by to sign them. premiercollectibles.com/Kid Congo Powers. Kid, I'll see you hopefully sooner than later, man.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Thanks a ton. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I'm going to keep signing.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone, bye. Goodbye.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.